Hey, good day, everybody. Nice to be with you. I'm Steve Farrell, the co-founder and executive director of Humanities Team. I'm coming to you live from our studio here in Boulder, Colorado. You can see who my guest is today, Neal Donald Walsch. I'm going to introduce him properly in a moment, but Neal, thank you for joining me today.
Well, it's lovely to be here. Thank you, Steve. And I'm excited about what we're going to be discussing here. Thank you.
Boy, me too. Me too. So let me just share. This is a live program. So shout out first to Neal Donald Walsch, the Conversations with God Foundation, all of the wonderful folks and friends of Neal Donald Walsch and the Conversations with God Foundation, our Humanities Team friends and Humanities Stream Plus friends who are in the green room here with us, the Sign Network, John Raymer, all of our friends that are out here around the world, really, that are receiving this live broadcast. So thank you for joining us. We've got a really powerful, fun, exciting program in store here during the next hour.
And the fun begins right now because I want you to know that I've changed my name. My name used to be Neal Donald Walsch, but now it's Neale Donald Walsch because I've changed my middle name to Donlad, as you can see from the screen right in front of you. Neale Donald Walsch. I'm very happy to. So the fun begins right now because it's been hard. It's been hard for Humanities Team to get my name spelled right for years. This is not the first time. So it's but I'll train them after another 25 years. Oh, look at that! All I have to do is say something, and it changes that fast.
Bam, nice. So thank you for catching up. This is the danger. This is the danger of a live program, folks. We're going to be playing videos, bringing them people live, and so apologies there, though, Neal. We never mean to misspell your name here. So, and great again to be with you.
I didn't think you were doing it deliberately. Thank you for telling me that you don't mean to do it deliberately. I thought for a moment that you were doing it on purpose.
You're going to see Jim Gray, who's courageous. He's the guy here in the studio leading a live program, doing a live program out on social media like this and on other channels. You gotta have a pretty strong intestinal tract because a lot of things can go wrong. And it's why you don't see many programs like this. So, thank you, Jim, for making it all easy for us. Okay, I want to just invite people now during the program. If you have comments, questions for Neal, put them into the chat there on social media as soon as you can. We'll get to as many as we can. And candidly, we get there are usually 10, 15 times more questions than we could ever get to. So apologies for that, which is why I'm sharing. Put your questions in the chat early, and then there's a better chance we can get to them. Okay, our theme here today is changing humanity's future. And Neal and I have talked about this here since July of this year when Humanities Team, Neal Donald Walsch and the Conversations with God Foundation and other thought leaders all over the world got behind this initiative. We're going to go down deeper into it here today. Again, it's important, changing humanity's future, right? There's a lot of hand-wringing going on all over the world. Doesn't need to be. There's actually something here, right now, that's happening that you wouldn't be watching this program if you weren't focusing on conscious living yourself. That just is that's the elevator ride out. It takes us to this whole beautiful planet and humankind destiny that this whole initiative is about. So let me give Neal a proper introduction here. Neal Donald Walsch is the celebrated author of the Conversations with God series and a modern-day spiritual messenger. Neal is a longtime and dear friend of mine and Humanities Team, and is a co-founder of Humanities Team, of course. He was the one that decided to launch this in June 2003, and I helped him. His books and teachings have served to help millions of people develop a modern sense of God and to build the connection between themselves and the divine. And there's actually no separation. So it's not even a connection. It's just understanding. This vessel we walk around in. We and God occupy it together. Neal is joining me today to discuss changing humanity's future and what steps you can take to elevate our collective consciousness. So again, thanks for being here. And boy, there's a lot we're going to get to here, Neal. So let me just invite you, just anything you want to share as we get started. We're going to we've got, as I mentioned, 3 video clips. So we're going to go to some video clips that are going to kind of take us down deeper into this whole discussion of what is happening today that's this big pivot, this big shift toward conscious living on the planet worldwide.
I think the only thing that I would add to what you said, Steve, as we begin, is that this really is, no kidding, a critical moment, a critical time. It's an important time. It's a perfect time, by the way. Conversations with God told me that this is really the perfect time, because the stage has been set for us to make some changes for which humanity has been waiting for a very long period. So now is the time for us to become involved. The setting is perfect. And if you don't believe the setting is perfect, just read the news this morning. I just finished reading the morning news. If that doesn't convince you that now is the time to raise our consciousness, then nothing will.
Boy, thank you for bringing that in. In fact, I just want to say something here. This initiative called Changing Humanity's Future, the inspiration for it comes from the Conversations with God books. And the last book, the 9th book in the series called Conversations with God, Book 4, Awaken the Species, this is just, the name tells you the story here, Awaken the Species. The whole point of this book, which was unexpected, was, hey, prayers are just about knocking my door down here, this being said by God. So I'll provide a little clarity, as to kind of where you are, where you can go, and some action steps to get from here to there. So now, as Neal's mentioning, with all of what's going on in the world, if God could come into our living room and do that, just provide a little clarity and a few action steps that take us to where we're going. Now, wouldn't we listen? Wouldn't we want to pay attention? So that's what we're doing here. We've collected up these vision statements. Neal brought in one from this powerful book of his that says, this is the perfect time for advancement, and we're one decision away. These are some of the quotes from God in the book that say, hey, and the hardest part of the hill is behind us, which was kind of shocking for me to read, but as I reflected on it, I could see how it's true. All of these things are said by God. So this initiative, not that this is some Old Testament book of Moses, God said and you shall, because if you've read Conversations with God, we understand that's not how it works. It's God says over and over and over again, I'm here to empower you. Your will is my will. But God's also saying, where your prayers are breaking my door down because there's so much challenge, hey, I'm happy to help out. That's what this initiative is. We're just taking these things that we're happy to help out, and we're saying, let's get serious about these steps. Things aren't so good out in the world.
Happy to help out is interesting, because the God dilemma that I point to in the book, The God Solution, is if there really is a God, if there really is a higher power, why is the world such a mess? And so I've had to really answer that question wherever I go. People want to know, and Neal, obviously you believe in God, then why is the world such a mess? Why are we in such terrible trouble? Why doesn't God help us out, to use Steve's interesting phrase? It's not God's job to decide for us what it is we want to experience. God's intention was not to produce a species of minions or servants who simply have to obey God's every command and do everything that God wants us to do, and then God will treat us well, kind of like a overpowering parent. But if we disobey God, then we'll pay for it. That's not the reality of the highest power. So it's what the highest power has done, what God has done, is give us, his children, her power. She has given us her energy and placed it inside of us as a civilization. It's up to us to create the experience of ourselves that we wish to experience here on this planet. And God is simply saying, I give you that power, use it as you will. So we have free will. And what you're seeing on the news this morning is the result of our free will so far. And what you're seeing in this program is what could be the result of our free will in the days and months ahead, if you choose to join with us in changing humanity's future.
Boy, and that is why this broadcast is so important. Right now, these things that we're sharing. Because what this means is there's no God on high coming in on a chariot to save the day. That isn't how life works. We were born, we are the chariot, all of us, or in Awaken the Species, it says we're the fire house that is coming in and putting out the fire. But it's up to us. Up to us. We need to step into this pivot. We need to make this a priority. We need to stretch further into it. That's why we're here on this broadcast today. It's up to us. And that's what Neal and I are talking about. So, okay, let's go to a short video clip here that describes this Changing Humanity's Future initiative. There are several we're going to play. This one with Neal and some of our partners in this endeavor. Here we go.
The time has come for humanity to make significant changes and pivot to a more conscious way of living on the earth. Fortunately, there are paths we can all choose to take on a daily basis that will help lead us to that better and brighter future.
A path to a future that we know in our hearts is the birthright of every one of us.
Sometimes, some of the challenges that come in our life, they're actually the fire of transformation. They're actually a part of the answered prayer.
If large numbers of people get together, create a team, and choose to experience conscious evolution, humanity can reach critical mass within a very short period.
When you live consciously, you experience being part of something sacred and larger than yourself.
We are the product of a living essence, an intelligent essence, that we are deeply connected, not only with ourselves, but with one another and with the earth around us and beyond the earth into the cosmos.
You awaken to your deeper self and the interconnectedness of all things, and you endeavor to create a more fulfilling life, both for yourself as an individual and for everyone, generating momentum toward manifesting a flourishing planet for generations to come.
When people unify, what is the feeling that people get from that is a feeling of companionship, a feeling of love for each other, a feeling of common destiny, and that is so powerful.
The Changing Humanity's Future Initiative's mission is to elevate conscious living as the most productive and sustainable way of inhabiting the earth.
We need to create a global undertaking that changes humanity's future in this generation. We believe that as we join together and work together, we can do more than change our collective energy, but we can also change humanity's future for the better, forever, by touching billions of lives in powerful and tangible ways.
We are born into heaven. Earth is a place for us to create. Earth is a place for us to experience. Earth is a place to manifest every concept that we refer to as heaven. Heaven on earth is what we can create.
Our time on earth can be incredibly meaningful to those who share this planet with us and those who will live after us. We hope you'll join us so that together we can create a whole new way of thriving on the earth. Go to this link to learn more about the Changing Humanity's Future initiative and how you can be part of the solution.
Okay, so a nice little clip that just describes this initiative. So Changing Humanity's Future, you can go to changinghumanitiesfuture.org to read about the initiative and sign up if it resonates. So Neal, you were bringing in really the big question you were sharing everywhere you go. People are asking, of course you believe in God, why isn't God coming in on high to get the job done? So to viewers, what are we invited to do right here, right now, to create this new future, to change humanity's future?
We're invited to use the power, the ability that God has given to all of us to produce and create our own reality. And that's the greatest gift we could have been given. See, God is not going to, as I said earlier, it's not God's job to come down here, not God's desire to come down here and just wave a magic wand and everything gets changed. See, God has given every sentient civilization in the cosmos and the intelligent life elsewhere in the universe the same gift, the gift of self-direction, the gift of self-creation, the gift of free will. So what we're invited to do is to raise our consciousness in such a way that it produces outcomes that we say we truly desire. Now, that process involves what I want to call simple education. It's just about learning or remembering what it is we need to implement and how we can implement it. So for a long time, I thought, wouldn't it be great if there was some kind of a university or place you could go that you could learn about everything, the physics of it, the science of it, the theology of it, the metaphysics of it. But there was no such place, except now there is. It's called Humanities Stream, a streaming program that provides you with a virtual curriculum that you can look at and watch and view one element at a time, so that within a very short period of time, you know and remember all you need to remember to put into place the kinds of changes that we're talking about. This is the first step you can take. That is probably one of the most important steps that our species could take at this time. So take a look at what we're talking about here, because, man, the future of our children and our grandchildren depends on what we decide in these days and times, in moments just like right now, today.
Yes, thank you, Neal. And education is always at the center of social change, always has been. So as Neal mentioned, Humanities Team created this revolutionary streaming platform. It's called Humanities Stream Plus. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, right? So nonprofits, the interest is always, let's get the price down. A for-profit is after margin, revenue growth, and profit growth. We're a nonprofit. The vision here with Humanities Stream Plus is to get this education platform and community that has hundreds of transformational education programs. Neal has over 80 right now on the platform. And again, there are hundreds of video trainings on the platform. And then it's a community with live events. The prices come down to where it's about $1 a day. It's $399 a year. We're going to go to 2 clips here in a moment from a panel that Neal and I recorded for the Global Oneness Summit that's coming up. When you buy what they call the upgrade, where all of the 10 days recordings are given to you, it's $247, and it's free as part of the Humanities Stream Plus platform. So this is one thing, is there are thousands of paths to the mountaintop that we're calling conscious living, where, Bruce Lipton is calling it heaven on earth. There are different words we can put to it, but it's where we're living in the fullness of this oneness, of unity consciousness, where we don't feel any separation with God or with each other or with the earth or life on earth. And we're really about just touching other people because we deeply understand they're a part of us. There is no separation, that we are all one. So the platform has Neal and Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton and Nassim Harriman and Lynn McTaggart and on and on. Again, there are hundreds. I won't try and name them all, but invite you to just check out the platform. A Starbucks coffee, is $5. About $1 a day, and then your whole family, your workplace, the world, you can just avail yourself of this incredible education that brings in the fullness of conscious living. So let's go now to actually, before we go to another clip, let me just bring something in. There are questions already coming in. So in the green room here with us, Neal, somebody's saying, people are asking what happened in the news today. You were referencing that. Do you want to go ahead and bring that in?
Well, simply another exchange of verbiage between the president of the United States and the president of Russia. And if you read that exchange, the president of Russia is talking about the possibility of using nuclear war, nuclear armament, in order to solve the problems that Russia believes it needs to solve. And what he said was, what Mr. Putin said was, we're not bluffing. Understand that we are not bluffing. We will use these devices, these tools, as he calls them. It was also announced today that he's mobilizing 300,000 more troops from Russia Another 300,000 troops have been mobilized as of today to move into Ukraine. So, guys, whatever side you think you're on, it's not a question of who's right and who's wrong. It's a question of what works and what does not work, given what humanity says it wants to do and what we're doing on this planet, not just with regard to our violence, but with regard to our climate, our environment, the way we treat each other in many, many other ways, our social constructions, our economic constructions, our political constructions. We are not producing the outcomes that we say we want to produce. Read the news today in every other area as well, not just with regard to Ukraine. Read the news in all the other areas, and you will close your computer and you will say, what in the world are we doing? And what would it take for us to change the direction in which we're moving? That's what we're talking about here today, because direction change is possible when enough people decide to make that movement. That's where you come in.
And let me say what maybe is the obvious here, but where we're living consciously, this whole changing humanity's future by elevating conscious living as the most sustainable and flourishing way of inhabiting the earth, then we're living in this place of non-separation. So with the divine, we can feel her, him, right here, right now, as we can others, as Russians, Ukraine, etc. And so things like war in the Ukraine, things like not stewarding our planet well with all of the ecosystem problems, including climate change, all of these things. When we're living consciously and living in this place of blessing, which is what conscious living is, it's where it's about affirming life, nurturing life, making it, it's about life-sustaining kinds of things. We can't even consider war or living in ways that are polluting our planet, etc. We often call conscious living the first domino, in the sense that where we all live this way together, all the dominoes fall, and this whole way then of this whole new glorious way of living on the planet is ushered in. So, so Neal, thank you for answering that question. There are other questions coming in. We'll get to some more here in just a moment. Let's go now to, I mentioned Neal and I recorded a program that's going to be part of the 2022 Global Oneness Summit. The summit this year is called Birthing a New World. And it starts October 15, and it's 10 days. It goes through October 24. We're on a panel called Changing Humanity's Future. We're going to now go to a short video clip where Neal talks about the Conversations with God series that was inspiring this initiative. So here we go, and then we're going to come back and talk about it.
In my Conversations with God encounter, it was made very clear to me that two things were true. Number one, that the world as we have created it and as we have known it is in a little bit of trouble. That there are a lot of parts of our systems that are going wrong. There are a lot of things that are occurring that we wish were not occurring. There are a lot of aspects of life that we certainly don't find palatable and harmonious. The good news is that Conversations with God said to me, these things are occurring for a very good reason, and that now is the perfect time, because it's all a part of the process of the evolution of a species. And the stage is being set, if I could use a metaphor, for us to now move quickly and decisively and dramatically and powerfully into the creation of the future for which we have all dreamed, and into the realization of ourself as a species that we all know we really are. And so I was told in the Conversations with God books that now is the perfect time for us to move forward rapidly and decisively, to move into the kind of tomorrow for which we've all dreamed. And when I read that, when I was given that information, I thought of the words. I just said, wow, gosh, we're really talking here about changing humanity's future. Everywhere I go, people are yearning to do something, to play a role, to have an active part in the process by which we could, in fact, hand off a better tomorrow. to our children and our grandchildren and those who follow us. Everyone is concerned about and enthusiastic about the opportunity to change humanity's future. That's what makes this a powerful and decisive program launched by Humanity's team. Thanks to Steve.
Okay, so I find so much inspiration in this, that again, where God is, in a sense, coming into our living room, this big public conversation that called the Conversations with God series, and saying, you can do it. You've already covered all this ground. The hardest part is behind you. You can do this. This is where you're going. Here are some things you can do. I find that very inspiring because we're going to get to some of the comments coming in. You'll see lots of anxiety, lots of hand-wringing, lots of sense of challenge. Well, the creator of the whole universe is right here, right now, and saying, come on, guys, keep going. You got a good start on it. Keep going. Elevate your priority here. Right, Neal?
Yes, and I want everyone to be real clear that all of us are having conversations with God all the time. This is not about me. It's not about, I'm the one who's bringing through God's voice. Just be real clear about that, because I don't want anyone to think that I imagine myself in that role. One of the most important messages that I've received is that all of us are having conversations with God all the time. We're simply calling it something else. An epiphany, a divine inspiration, a wonderful idea, a moment of clarity, whatever we want to call it. And by the way, don't be too surprised if what you're experiencing right now, what you've brought into your life today, because you brought this into your life right now, is part of that process that I have called Conversations with God. That's what's going on. So listen carefully to what you brought yourself here in order to be aware of.
Yes, absolutely. So there's lots going on as part of this initiative, way too many things that Neal and I could cover in this hour. But as part of this initiative, there's public awareness campaigns. So on social media, on Facebook, soon on YouTube, as you're scrolling, you will see this initiative come up, Changing Humanity's Future. Go to changinghumanitiesfuture.org. So a lot of what we're doing is just creating public awareness. Today, in most parts of the world, including where I live, where there's conversation about today's world, I rarely hear somebody come in with, hey, guys, there's a lot of hand-wringing here. What do you say we talk about what's working and this whole journey to conscious living that is that creates this whole new future? I don't see people raising their hand now. So we're trying to elevate conscious living to public conversation, to philanthropy, to daily action, candidly, for each of us to have. This is already a part of our life. It's why you're watching now. But can we raise the priority in this? Can we stretch a bit more? Can we decide that we're going to be more and do more each day? That's what this is about. That's how together, 18 years from now, in 2040, we make conscious living pervasive worldwide. We all step up. We're already doing it. Most of us. We're just asking you to create more priority and to step up and put more energy into maybe what we're doing already.
And let me add to this, if I can, Steve. Here's how this kind of change rolls over. Here's how it works. It's about the domino, what I want to call the domino effect. When the first domino falls, the rest of the dominoes follow. We live in a world where people model behaviors that for others. So what we're inviting you to do is to not just simply to take a course here and there or do a program here and there. That's important. It can be very important to help you know where we're going. But then decide to become a model of the behavior that you would like others to embrace. And Gandhi put it perfectly several years ago. Be the change you wish to see. And what does that look like in daily life? It looks like moving through your life experience in a way that models the behavior that we are inviting others to embrace. And as soon as others begin to see something they admire, they will pick up that behavior and model it for even others and others and others. And then the dominoes begin to fall. And that's how it works. So we're inviting you to not only enter into a program where you begin to educate yourself so that you really have the articulation The purpose of the education program, by the way, is not simply to tell you something we don't think you know. Much of it you may have thought of before and be aware of before. But the beauty of this education program is that it gives you the words, the articulations, the ability. When you hear Nassim Harriman talk about the science of it, the physics of it, and people like Greg Braden who are well versed in that, suddenly we have turns of phrase we think, I can use that in my next living room conversation when I have people in my house. And that's part of the process that we're talking about here. Become a model of the world you wish to see.
Absolutely. Yes. And as you mentioned, Nassim Harriman and Greg Braden, they created a masterclass recently with Humanities Team. It's called Forbidden Science. And what they both share in this masterclass based on their research is that we are all sovereign to one body. This is Nassim's language, that each person, everything in the cosmos, everything, not just humankind, everything is, he says, sovereign to one body, and we can call that universe or cosmos or something. And then he says, so now what this effect it can have is it's incredibly empowering when you stop to think that the puzzle, which is the entirety of the cosmos and universe, that you're a part of that. You are that. He said, look at how empowering that can feel. Now, what's really amazing is put this side by side with the conversations with God language. We are all one. That God is not absent from anything. And look how empowering this is, where you know that you're offspring of, part of God. Well, you know, we're saying the same thing here, right? Science is now there's a complete bridge that's been built. We're saying the same things. We're just using the terms of science and spiritual terms to say the same thing. And hopefully it feels as empowering to you as it does to me, just as has been shared. It's incredibly empowering. You can't leave out the puzzle piece, which is you, which is each of us. We're all built right into the body of this thing. So, you know, boy, let's just step out and do it. And also our lives, you know, boy, Neal's life, he talks personally about his life. I talk personally about mine in Silicon Valley and technology and executive and all of that stuff. And I'll tell you what, none of that, you know, our earlier lives just pale in comparison to the lives we're living now in the fullness of this whole, you know, part of one body thing, where it's not just about our little self, it's about the larger self too, that what we're doing, where we're leaning into it, elevating priority, stretching into this conscious living thing, inviting others, and as Neal's mentioning, where we're the change we wish to see in the world, and we're honest about it, of, you know, hey, I'm really kind of doing pretty well in these areas, you know, and candidly, I've got some work to do over here. I'm not walking on water here, but I've got a lot of things that are working well, and there's a lot of love in my home, you know, et cetera, where we're just honest about the journey. This is another thing that was a big discussion item in this book 4, Awaken the Species, that Neal came out with. It's the last book in the Conversations with God series. So, boy, well, let's go to the next video, which is where we talk about what are the things then, what are action steps we can take. This is, again, a cutout from this program that Neal and I recently recorded for the 2022 Global Oneness Summit. Here we go. We're going to come back and talk about it and get to more questions, too, that are coming in here.
Now, to get to the heart of your question, Tim, what can the average person do beyond becoming aware that there is something they could do? Beyond that, what is the next step for people? The next step is to step into your own personal demonstration of the highest truth that we wish to share with everyone whose life we touch. Or to put it in simple terms, decide to be a model. To model the behavior, as Mr. Gandhi said wonderfully, be the change you wish to see in the world. Simply be the change you wish to see in the world. What the average person can do then is, number one, step into the living of their own highest understanding of who they and we and all of this is about, that we are all connected, that we are no longer going to move through life thinking that we're separate entities, that I'm separate from you, I'm separate from the trees and from the planets, and separate from God, that we bring an end to the debilitating thought of separation. We are one decision away from changing our future unbelievably and beautifully in the future, in the days ahead. And that one decision is to simply decide, you know what, we're not separate. We're no longer separate from each other than the fingers of my hand are separate from my body. They're individualized, they're not identical. They have different functions and different appearances, but they are all, in fact, obviously connected to the body. And that is the metaphor that I use to help people understand what I mean by ending our idea of separation. That does not mean that we end our idea of individualization. We can all continue to individualize our expression of the unity, like different instruments in an orchestra playing the same piece of music, but not in exactly the same way. And so we have the opportunity then to step into the modeling of our understanding of all of this by everything that we think and say and do, and then by sharing with others how they can learn more about this, how they can access actual courses, programs, insights, understandings that help us to raise our consciousness to a level where we all become deeply aware of the highest truth of life, which is the truth of our oneness and of the power that that oneness gives us. It's not a mistake. God didn't make a mistake. This is not a coincidence. It's the idea that God has put forth. When you use the divine power that I have placed into every living thing, God says, you will find your ability to create the tomorrow of your highest dreams right there at the end of, talk about your fingers, right there at the end of your fingertips. So this is the opportunity for us to demonstrate that and to point other people to awarenesses and resources that can help them to understand these realities.
Okay, very beautiful, lucid descriptions there. Neal, there's bunches of comments and questions coming in, so let me just get to a few here in the green room with us. Libby says, this came at the perfect time for me. I've been struggling about the future of our country, and this is so welcomed as I can help. And then Cathay says, wow, and thank you, Neal. Your message is our message to live and share. Thank you both. And then Toman has a question, says, how can we create a clear picture of what we want to create?
Actually, by living and articulating it. I hate to sound like I'm a one-song record, but really the truth is how we can create that is by living into it and speaking into it and sharing it with everyone whose life we touch. You know what I would suggest? Kind of an interesting idea. Sit down tomorrow with a notebook. Go over to the drugstore and grab one of those little notebooks you find in the school, back to school section. By the way, they're selling all this stuff, getting ready to go back to school here in a couple of weeks. No, actually, school has probably already started in most places. Go to the section, get a little notebook, come home and write in your notebook. Answer your own question. How can I create, what role can I play, and what can I actually think, say, and do that can produce the outcomes that Steve and Neal are talking about here? And then write down the answer. You know what? It'll shock you. What will come to you in a moment like that when you choose to access the wisdom that lives within you. So, my friend, the answer that I would give you to the question you've asked is provide yourself with the specifics of the answer to that question.
Yeah, beautiful. Nice. Just to sit and Barbara Marx Hubbard used to always suggest people do this, to sit and really go within and then write out what comes to you, so you can refer back to it. It's a great exercise, and these notebooks are anywhere, and they're ubiquitous and they're cheap.
And I dare you to call it, when you show it to your partner or your friends or your neighbors or whoever, if you show it to anybody at all, and they say, what is this? Say, well, it's my own conversation with God.
Yeah.
Dare you, double dare you.
Own it, huh, Neal? Like you say, this whole, I don't know where it came from, this inspiration, God is within. Own it. Let's share. You know, it's fun. Okay, here's another item from, this is a question from Hilda in the green room here. She says, in your books, you say there's no devil or hell, but what's going on is evil and devilish, and our fight is those evil functions that are so powerful, question mark. So there's a question in there, Neal.
Well, I think that, yes. And I think that my answer to the thrust of that comment is this. There's no question by our definition that much of what is going on in the world is what we would call evil, or certainly not okay with us, and therefore not what we call good or positive. That doesn't mean that there's some kind of a being, some kind of an entity in the universe called the devil. See, truth is, here's the sad truth. We don't need a devil. We don't need some kind of supernatural entity called Satan to produce these outcomes. Excuse me, but we're doing it to ourselves. Not because the devil is out there causing us to do it. You know, there was a comedian. Who was a comedian? Was it, I forgot, was it Dick Gregory? One of the comedians used to say, the devil made me do it. You know, excuse me, there is no devil. Because who would have created the devil? I want to answer your question directly. Let's talk about this idea just for a minute about there being a Satan. If there really was a Satan in the universe, who would have created it? God created everything. So are you telling me really that God created evil, that God created a devil, that God created, oh, I know, now I know, don't send me emails. I already know what the theological construction around this is, that the devil was a fallen angel, that God could not do anything about it. The devil just decided to show God that he could be as great as God. And God then condemned him to a place that didn't yet exist called hell. And then, so God created Satan for choosing to be as great as God and for declaring that he was as great as God. The greatest sin in the world that the devil created, that the devil committed, is the sin of declaring himself to be as wonderful as God. So God punished him. That's the theology that some of the world's religions have placed before us. Guys, excuse me, it's a faulty theology. God is not a being, the most powerful entity in the universe, whose ego was wounded because one of his angels decided that he could be as great as God. God wants us to be as great as God. That's God's greatest desire, for us to exhibit, to express, to demonstrate, and to experience ourselves as divine. God chooses life as a process by which divinity can be expressed in, as, and through every aspect of life. Why would God, therefore, decide to make the devil wrong, or to even create a devil, to create such an experience, to imagine that such an entity existed, or to label one of his angels as that, simply because the angel did what God has invited all of us to do, which is to express divinity? Let's be real clear here. God's agenda is for us to experience ourselves as individuations of divinity. Just as a wave is an individuation, an individual expression of the ocean. The wave is not something other than the ocean. It's not separate from the ocean. It's an arising of the ocean in magnificent and glorious form. And when the wave it finishes with its expression, when that individual expression is complete, the wave recedes back into the ocean to demonstrate again on another day in another way. But the ocean doesn't condemn the wave. The ocean doesn't say, how dare you? How dare you demonstrate the magnificence, the power, and the glory of the ocean? How dare you do that? No, the ocean actually encourages the wave to do it. So you know what I want to say to everybody? Make waves. Bring yourself to the world as an expression of divinity. And understand that God will never condemn you, never make you wrong, nor did God create anything called Satan. There's an acronym for Satan, S-A-T-A-N, seeing anything as negative. But there really is no actual Satan in the world. But is there evil in the world? Of course there is. because we are a primitive species, just learning how to be divine. Did you hear what I just said? We are a primitive species, just now remembering how to be divine. And we're going to remember, that is, become a member once again, to remember. We are going to become a member once again of the body of God through the individual modeling, the individual demonstration of every single person on the planet who agrees with the ideas we are presenting here. Be the change, in fact, that you wish to see. And the devil is not existing. There's no such thing, but evil does exist because we've got things backwards. We have the whole idea of what life is about backward. I'm sure you've heard before. Evil is live, spelled backward. Simply turn the word around and get us moving forward again in the expression of life for which we were all designed. That's my thought about it. I could, of course, be wrong. I could be wrong about everything I'm telling you, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. On this, when you go to the changinghumanitiesfuture.org, you'll read about the initiative. Also, just right there at the top, there's an action steps button, and there's a join the initiative button. When you go to the action steps button, it shares things that we naturally want to do, where we understand that we're one with God. So the first action step there, it says, listen to the still quiet voice that is God guiding you from within. So this still quiet voice, right? It's been talked about in every sacred text. Everybody here, I'm sure, even maybe right now, can hear that still quiet voice. That is clear. That's the highest word. That's love. That's an expression of light. And it says, and then just follow it. And then really stepping into the fullness of our divine presence, of our divinity, where we don't know how to do anything but good, that which is life affirming, life nourishing, life sustaining. It's who we are. It's what we do. So, boy, I wish we could broadcast this out to every channel on Sunday, when candidly there are so many misconceptions that are broadcast all over the world of this whole light versus the darkness thing. So Patricia in the green room says, Neal, you nailed it. We have done this to ourselves. Okay, Patricia, so thanks for coming in. So there are then bunches of other questions pouring in here. So Joni says, I want to know, what are the small things I can do to make a difference? I have 3 children, 10 and under. I will help with my time. I will help, and my time is limited.
Golly. Number one, help us in our effort to raise the consciousness. If there's something you could do that's really simple and you can do it in 20 minutes or less, send a little note with your understanding of what we're trying to do to everybody on your address book, to everybody in your address book. I dare you. Become a beacon, become a megaphone, become that first domino. You want to know something little you can do? It's not really little at all. It would be big. Most of us have an address book, now that we're on the internet these days, with at least 10 names in there. Some of us have 20 names. Some of us have actually 50 names. Some of us have five or 6 names. Send everybody in your address book information about what's happening right here, and send them a little note, just a tiny little note from you to them. Want to help us change the world? Concerned about tomorrow? Worried about where we're going as a planet, as a species? There are things you can do. And there's an international organization, aptly named Humanities Team, that's working right now on recruiting memberships and activity and participation in a project called Changing Humanity's Future. That's all. You can just write that in a note to all of your friends. If you want to know what you can do tomorrow, you can do this before tomorrow. After this program today, you can spend 15 minutes and do exactly that. And suddenly, 8 or 10 or 15 or 20 more people will know about this, times the number of people who are watching this program. And that's a huge difference that can be made in the next 60 minutes. And then after you decide to become a beacon, to become a megaphone for what we're doing, to become an announcer of what's happening here, then of course, in small ways, you can live into the agenda of your soul. Because I want to tell you that I believe sincerely that what we're doing here is part of the agenda of your soul. Do you think it's a coincidence that you're born at this time? See, I don't think it's a coincidence that we are here right now. I mean, in this moment of human history. I asked God about that, and God said, you know what? The team is forming. You came to the planet at this point in human history in order to play your role. And don't think that an individual role is a small role. It can be a huge role, especially when more than one of you decide, because wherever two or more are gathered, there is tremendous power. So the next thing you can do is to pay attention to the agenda of your soul. And whenever anything goes on, whenever you see anything in the news, when something is occurring in your own house, you can begin the demonstration with the children that you just mentioned that you have. God bless you. Isn't it wonderful to have those children? And you stand right now as the model for your children. So whenever anything is happening in the world or in your own home, stop and ask yourself a simple question. This is a question that I ask myself 3 or 4 times a day. What does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? Whether it's something that I've seen on the news or something new that I'm seeing in my house, something going on across the room, positive or what I might call not so welcome, whatever it might be that's occurring, I ask myself, wait a minute. Now, what does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? And what I do when I ask myself that question is I recontextualize the experience itself. I place it into a new context. I hold it in a new way in my mind and in my heart. And my heart and mind begin to respond to what that new context informs me about what's now occurring. It changes the way I respond, whether I'm responding to my children or to the people around the world who are acting like children.
Yeah. Amen. So here's the second action step on changinghumanitiesfuture.org. When you go to the action step page, the second step is open yourself fully to your conscious self, to that which is your true nature. These came straight out of the Conversations with God book for Awaken the Species. These were action steps where Neal was asking God, what are some of the simple steps we can take that just lead us to this glorious new future? The hardest part of the hill is behind us, hooray. What steps do we still need to take? So this was number 2. And just as Neal and I are emphasizing here too, when we open ourselves fully to our conscious self, our true nature, it feels so good. I mean, it's the opposite of sacrifice. Some people think, oh my God, if I do this, I guess I'm going to walk the journey of sacrifice. This is not the journey of sacrifice. This is the journey of prosperity, of calling, of soul's calling, of life. The true invitation in life. This is what is said throughout Conversations with God and other sacred texts, right? So we're just really kind of coming into the understanding, the awareness of what ultimate reality really is, and then living into it.
It's the journey of joyous expression. It's the journey of joyous demonstration. It's the journey of joyous fulfillment of your true identity. Or to put it in simple language, it's the journey that you have been waiting for since the day you were born. That's why you came here, to express and experience who you really are. And yes, it's not a burden at all. It's a joy. It's life's greatest joy.
And I think we started the program, Neal, sharing about today's news. Look at the trend. News is not getting better. It's not getting better. We've got what Neal was reviewing with Ukraine, climate change. I live in Boulder. It's a gorgeous place, sunshine. Guess what the last couple summers have been about? Lots of smoke, fire. We lost 1,000 homes here in Boulder to fire. We're seeing this all over the world. This is not going to get better until we take these action steps to, till we become the chariot that comes along and creates this new future. There's nobody on high coming in. to do that for us.
Voices must be raised. Attention must be paid. There's a wonderful play. I'm a product of the theater. You know, I've spent a lot of my life in live theater. And there's a wonderful play, I don't know whether you're aware of it or not, but it's called Death of a Salesman. And in this wonderful drama called Death of a Salesman, there's a statement that's made repeatedly by the lady, by the wife of the main character. And she walks around the house saying, "Attention must be paid." And that statement has stayed with me all my life and applied in many other areas as well. So this is what you can do. Attention must be paid. And when you are one of those who pays attention and then encourages other people to pay attention, then all the bad news we're hearing about can turn into good news virtually overnight. It can happen just that fast if we move as fast as we wish the change to be made.
Amen. Phoebe shares, volunteering really helps me from leaping out the window. It's a good way to calm yourself. People, let's wake up. Thank you, Steve and Neal. So Phoebe, thank you for bringing that in. There's a question that came in from a viewer that's sharing that she's gotten tangled up in all of the anxiety out in the world, and understands we need to pay attention. And she's saying, you know, Neal, are there things I can do to kind of pay attention better and step into it better? Because I'm feeling a great deal of anxiety just kind of being right here, right now.
Anxiety is simply prayer misdirected. You see, we live in a world that's comprised of energy, essentially. The entire universe is simply a conglomeration of energy. So what I look at is the energetics. What kind of energetic am I sending into the world? What we can decide to do when we start feeling worried or feeling a touch of anxiety, which is very natural, by the way. There's nothing wrong with that in the sense that it's not a misbehavior. It's quite natural for us to feel anxiety or worry. But as soon as that anxiety comes up within me, I make an active choice, a conscious decision. Wait a minute. I'm going to literally, not figuratively, but literally change my mind. You know, I go to the mind store and I go, you know what, I'm going to replace this with that. And I put I be of a new mind. And I think, yes, okay, this is something that I was once worried about, but now I'm really very clear. And here's my favorite prayer. Thank you, God, for helping me to understand that this problem is now being solved for me. Say that prayer every morning, twice a day, or whenever you feel anxiety. Stop for just a second. Stop whatever you're doing and whatever you're thinking, and say that little prayer that I was given in conversations with God. Thank you, God, for helping me to understand that this problem is already being solved for me. And then step into the positive energetic flow of that awareness. And then look to see what thing you can do, small or large, that can shift the energetic that you're sending into the world.
In Conversations with God, Book 4, Awaken the Species, two of the things that are discussed at length here that relate to this are this notion of living intentionally, setting out the agenda for the rest of our life, where intentionally this is going to be our day. This is going to be our focus. This is what we're going to see and feel. And then it leads into living metaphysically. It talks about how highly evolved beings, or Hebs, live their lives, where there's this convergence of physical, human, and metaphysical living. And in the metaphysical, you know, even beyond intention, we're actually seeing and feeling that healing outcome, that whole new world, that glorious new future where we're expressing in this loving, light-filled way. And except that we're not seeing it as a movie, as something out there, we're seeing it as our reality that's in here, that we're actually living out each day. We're stepping through that, living in that way, touching people in that way, expressing that way. You know, again, this is all discussed at length in Conversations with God, Book 4, Awaken the Species. So this is going to what Neal's talking about here, where we really embody conscious living in its fullest. Okay, here's a question from James.
Oh, really?
He says, My 40-year-old son, who has 2 small children, talks frequently about leaving the U.S. What advice can Neale offer me to help him understand that wherever you go, there you are?
That's the advice. That's exactly what I was going to say. Share that with your son and allow your son to trust that what you're saying. You didn't come by this, yesterday. You weren't, what's the old saying? I wasn't born yesterday. I didn't just fall off the turnip truck a couple of days ago. I've been around for a while, son, a few more years than you have, and take it for what it's worth, from the for what it's worth department. Wherever you go, there you find yourself. So you can change the location if you want to, but that's not going to shift the global reality. And you might not even change your own individual reality. On the other hand, do what feels best to you. If you think that leaving the country is what's best for you, then I would never try to stop you. Do what you think is best for you. Follow your heart and follow your truth.
All right, and that'll be the last word here today. We were actually out of time here, so go to humanitiesteam.org. So it's a 501c3 nonprofit based in the United States. About half the members are outside of the U.S., half are in the U.S. Together with Neale and the Conversations with God Foundation, we have this huge new initiative called Changing Humanity's Future. You can read about it on the Humanities Team website. And just invite you, this whole hour has been an invitation to step into it with us. Yes, join it, where you leave your name and email address, but more than that, what Neale and I are talking about here, we're each being called to a station in life. That's why we were born into the world. Feel into your own station in life, your own expression, embodiment of conscious living, what you're being called to do. Where we do that together, we are that chariot coming in from on high. We are the fire truck. We are creating the glorious new future for ourselves, our children, and our children's children. Is there any bigger or better invitation than that? So join us. Neale Donald Walsch, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and your heart. Really grateful, Neale. Thank you. Join us. The Global Oneness Summit's around the corner on the humanitiesteam.org site. You can see how to register for that. Neale has got a number of different placements in the summit this year, along with many other incredible thought leaders all over the world. So thank you, viewers. Thanks for spending your time here with us. We'll be back with you live here Wednesday next week. We always come on 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the rest of your week, and peace and love and blessings to all of you. Namaste, everybody. Take care.